All right. Hello, friends. Michael D. Butler here, and we are going live today. And you've RSVP'd for it. You've been asking for this. You've been saying, Michael D., I've written a book. I want to get my book adapted for film. What do I do next? Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm Michael D. Butler. I'm the global book publisher from Dallas, Texas. We've published 791 titles, authors in 64 nations. Our next guest has been very successful in getting books optioned for movies, or better yet, I'm going to say, and you're going to learn why adapting your book to film is better than getting an option for the movie. So I'm going to bring in Sean Kuhn, who's going to introduce our guest from Hollywood. Now, Sean, I met you about 10 years ago. You owned a bunch of bookstores around the country. Readership is up globally, but bookstores went from 40,000 bookstores to 20,000 in the last 10 years. But you really get publishing. You really get storytelling. You love what you're doing now, working with Stephen Simon from Hollywood, adapting books to film. Wherever you're watching from, friends, drop it in the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. Say hi to us. Let us know how long you've been wanting to adapt your book to film. And I'm going to introduce Sean Kuhn. Sean, it's good to reconnect with you, my friend. I know during the pandemic, as readership was up globally, you were commenting to me how that movie consumption was up. So with that, take it away, my friend. Glad to have you and Stephen with us today.
Well, Michael, thank you so much. Folks, I just want to tell you something. I have been watching Michael for years, and one of my favorite restaurants is Ruth Chris Restaurant. And I want to tell you something. Michael Butler is the sizzle and the steak. So he is the real deal. You've got to run fast to keep up with Michael, and he is a great promoter and generates wonderful content in books. So, as Michael said, I've been around the book business for 35 years, nearly 25 of them. I ran and owned a chain of bookstores, bought and sold millions of books. And so kind of got into the publishing, selling the actual books, hand selling books. Yeah. And I've now been involved in nearly every aspect of publishing. Stephen and I connected on a project that we were working on, trying to up engagement for churches. And Stephen was, as Michael said, former Hollywood producer, and he was bringing a certain aspect to this, but Stephen was not so much up on the church side of things. So I became Stephen's evangelical Sherpa, and we had so much fun with that. Now, if Michael is the sizzle and the steak, then Stephen Simon is the gefilte fish from the finest Hollywood commissary ever. So with that, I want to introduce my friend and partner and bestest buddy, Stephen Simon.
Okay. I have had a lot of introductions in my life, never gefilte fish. So thank you, Sean. And thank you, Michael, for hosting this. So hi, everyone. I am Stephen. I'm going to give you a kind of a brief thumbnail of my past, at least my professional past. So I got into the film business 45 years ago. Before that, I was a lawyer. Don't hold that against me, please. I haven't practiced law in over 45 years. I don't go to meetings anymore for ex-lawyers. Please don't hold that against me. Anyway, I got into the film industry working for a great producer named Ray Stark. And when I started my own producing career, my specialty has been adaptations. So I'm going to jump to that real quickly. Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour and Christopher Plummer was a project that I optioned as a book and then developed the screenplay and then produced the film. The film got an Academy Award nomination, and it's still played on cable stations all over the country and has become kind of a cult favorite. What Dreams May Come was a novel as well. I optioned that book, I developed that screenplay, I produced that film, Very proud of it. Took me a long time to get it made. Got 2 Academy Award nominations and won one. And then I had produced a film called All the Right Moves, which was based on an article in Sports Illustrated, which again, I optioned, got a writer to write, and then we created a whole story around a very small kernel of an idea of kids getting out of high school in steel towns and going to college and only being able to get football scholarships. Just so you don't think that it's entirely serious stuff with me, I also developed and was the executive producer on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure 2, Party On Dudes. And in the year 2000, I also produced the first original film ever to premiere on the internet called The Quantum Project with John Cleese. I've been involved in a lot of different projects over the years. And recently, as Sean said, I have become fascinated by the faith film world. Now, we still do work with writers that do not have faith-based projects. So that's important for you to know. We're actually in the process of working with somebody now that had an original idea. But there's something about faith-based projects that has really fascinated me. I've developed a relationship with the fellow that runs a firm, which is the big distributor of these films right now. And I've learned something that has been fascinating for me. As Sean said, I am not a Christian. I'm Jewish culturally. Certainly my appetite for food is very much from that. And my spirituality has not been pegged to any particular religion. But what I am finding fascinating now is that the conversations that I've had with executives in that world, they have told me that right now, what they want to do with faith-based films is expand them to a more general audience, because they feel that with the right mix of things, even though it's faith-based, if it's handled in the right way, we can get a much broader audience, which they've been able to do recently. That is what we do. Sean and I, if you decide you want to work with us, we will take you through a long period of time of learning the difference between writing a screenplay and writing a book. They are very, very different delivery mediums, very, very different. There are a number of things that need to happen when you adapt a book. First of all, books can be 50, 60, 70,000 words, 80,000 words. We just did an adaptation, the first one that we have done together in this faith-based world, which we're just finishing up now with a wonderful writer. Her book was 324 pages. I forget how many words it was a lot. The average screenplay, 110 to 115 pages, written in a very particular app, is about 22,000 words. So the first thing you need to know about adapting a book is the great Bob Seger line from, I think it's from the song We've Got Tonight, which is what to leave in, what to leave out. There's a lot of things that have to be left out. And that is one of the fascinating things about doing an adaptation. I won't get into the details unless somebody asks me to during this hour, but adapting Somewhere in Time from the book it was based on, which was called Bid Time Return, we had to make a lot of changes in that book to turn it into a film. What Dreams May Come, we had to make a lot of changes from the book to get it into a film. Films are very dialogue oriented. And often when you're writing a book, you can talk about your characters' feelings, their fears, their doubts, and things like that. But in a screenplay, the only thing the viewer understands is what they see and what they hear. And it requires a different way of thinking. We will take you through all of that. With our clients, we have up to a 2-hour Zoom call every week in which we go over whatever we're doing. We start off by doing an outline. It's very important that even if you have a book, particularly actually if you have a book, that we do a step-by-step outline before we jump into the screenplay. because that's where the what to leave in, what to leave out, what to add, what to tweak. And if you notice, most films don't say up front a true story. They say based on a true story, because there are things that you have to do with a book, with a film rather, that you could have gotten away with in a book, but you can't get away with in a film. So we will take you through the outline, and then we will work with you page by page by page, writing the script. The scripts are all written on an app called Final Draft, which is a whole other aspect, which we'll not get into the details of today. And then we will take you through the entire first draft of your script, and we'll tweak it. We'll do all of that. At the end of the process, you will have a finished screenplay. I want to say something else to you because Michael brought it up, and we've had people talk to us about this. Somebody said, well, you know, I'd like to work with you guys, but I really think I should just find a producer, because a producer will then option my screenplay, and then, you know, they'll do the selling of it, and then I don't have to pay you guys, etc. That all sounds good, but having been a producer for the last almost 45 years, I can tell you the way that works. A producer is not going to get involved in a project. I would not, as a producer, get involved in a project, and unless they have some legal rights to the book or whatever it might be. In that legal rights document that the producer will insist that you sign, you're going to find out that you have lost control of your project. Because then the producer, particularly if any money changes hands, well, I can get a $10,000 this, yeah, but if any money changes hands, they can replace you in a heartbeat. And then you really never have had the chance to write your own screenplay. In the engagement letter that Sean and I use with our clients, the very first paragraph makes it very clear that Sean and I get nothing from the project other than the fee that you pay us to help you. We don't own any part of it. We don't control any part of it. We're not going to be producers on it. We have no rights to anything other than the fee. And the reason that we want to do that is that the woman we just finished with on this project said at the beginning of the project, we said, Beth, what do you want at the end of the project? And she said, I really want to be happy with it. I want to know I want to know I've done this, and I want you guys to tell me I've got a real shot at getting it made, because getting movies made is not easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It's not. Today, it's easier than it's ever been because of these streaming services. Netflix spends billions and billions and billions of dollars on content every year. So does Paramount Plus. So does Amazon. So does HBO. So does Showtime. Because there are now so many different competing areas to put films on. And because the pandemic basically kind of ended the theatrical film industry, unless you have a big event movie like Marvel comic, things like that, and certain horror movies where you're going to get a teenage audience. The studios actually just did a very extensive survey that they don't want people to know about, but we saw a copy of it. They did a poll to find out whether people were going to come back to theaters, and they found out that 50% of the people who say they are frequent moviegoers or occasional moviegoers, only 50% ever wanted to go back into a theater again. A lot of that is because of the expense. A lot of that is because of the lack of courtesy around you, which has certainly become a big thing in the last few years. And getting your film onto a streaming service is a lot easier than getting it into a theater. And it also has a much longer life. So these are among the things that we can talk about. And by the way, the film industry just settled 6 months of strikes. Those of you who are looking forward, or were looking forward to seeing maybe fall television shows or things on Netflix that weren't all from out of the United States, there has been nothing going on in the film industry as far as writing, acting or doing anything else about films in 6 months.
Question on that, Stephen. Question. I've had a lot of authors ask me recently, how did that 6-month strike affect their ability to bring a book to film adaptation to market?
Oh, it's
Made it better for them, or is it worse for them?
Oh, no, it's a big help because no work happened for 6 months. As I was about to say, the fall television series is now the spring television series because everything's gone. People who are big fans of Yellowstone, who are looking forward to seeing the end of it, whether Kevin Costner is going to be back or not is a big question. That's not going to come on the air now for a year from this month.
Wow.
Now that the strikes have been settled, and most of the reason it took 6 months was not about money, it was about AI. And we're not going to get into all of that today, but the studios really were threatening that they were going to use AI to write scripts, which is a terrible idea, would basically end writers' careers. And my own feeling about that is no matter how they develop AI is never going to have a soul and it's never going to have a heart. And that's what writing is all about. It's about writing from your soul and writing from your heart.
Well, give us a little idea here. And I know got something to chime in here, and I'm just going to say, wherever you're watching from today, friends, we've got friends watching from Africa, from Scotland, from New York and LA have weighed in. Pop in the chat wherever you're watching from, because we're streaming live right now on LinkedIn. We're streaming live on Facebook. We're streaming live on YouTube and Twitter. I'm Michael D. Butler, your host, Beyond Publishing, global book publisher, 791 titles, authors in 64 nations. And this is so exciting to me because meeting Sean Kuhn at the Book Expo America, it was 10 years ago, Sean, and Book Expo America, a lot of people thought the internet killed publishing. A lot of people thought the pandemic was going to kill movies, but readership is up globally. We're learning that movie consumption is up globally. We got Tennessee in the house. We've got Edinburgh, Scotland in the house. Wherever you're watching from, Florida's in the house. We've got Dee Dee Cox. She's got like 10 books she wants to adapt for movies, and she agrees that AI is soulless. She's from Rooster Run, Kentucky, and she would know. So, Sean, I want you to go ahead. I'm gonna share some of these comments and go ahead and pop in your questions, because in a few minutes we're gonna take some Q&A from Sean and Stephen. But go right ahead, Sean.
Well, thank you, Michael. Michael, as you know, and we have authors that do an amazing job when they write their book, but they are pantsers. Now, a pantser is somebody who writes from the seat of their pants. And I have a very good friend who is a New York Times best-selling author, and she will say, doggone it, those characters are doing something in book 2 that they weren't supposed to do until book 3. Well, that may be in her books, but she also turns her books into screenplays, into movies. And I can assure you that before they write that screenplay, that they have written an outline, and that the outline needs to even be adapted from the fictional book that she writes, because not all of it can happen in a book. Stephen and I will often say to an author, the audience will not tolerate what you want to show them. And that you have to understand what the audience breaking point is. You cannot show them a child in a casket. And especially early on in the movie, you've got to develop and bring your audience along so that they will be willing to hear what your message is and whatever. Stephen, you had an experience with your movie with Robin Williams where you had to deal with some of that. Could you?
Yeah, boy, you're 100% right, and that certainly brought it back to me about people. Movies obviously are a visual medium, and I'll get back to what dreams may come in a second. Think about what we all felt when we read about the invasion of Ukraine. think about what we all felt when we read what happened in Israel and what is happening in Gaza. And then compare that to the impact of the video that we've seen of that. When they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, that is an understatement. Visual images are very powerful. Now, in What Dreams May Come, and I don't know how many of you have seen that. I'm not going to get through the whole plot point of it, but one of the main plot points early in the film is that the main character's children, 2 young children, were killed in a car accident. And Robin, playing the main character in a church, gets up to do the eulogy for his kids. And there are 2 children's coffins on screen, closed. Every time we previewed that film, we had at least 5 or 10 people get up and walk out. And I would always position myself up and out in the lobby and identify myself as the producer of the film so they could hit me with whatever they wanted to hit me with. And they just said, it's too disturbing. We think about our kids, it's too disturbing, etc. They're right. And, you know, I learn things every single day from movies that I make, from things that we do. Those images, as Sean said, are incredibly, incredibly powerful. So I think I'm going to keep going on here, right? All right, I think I'll keep going on. So Sean brought up the idea of these visuals. This is something that's really important, again, for book authors to realize as they transfer their works into film. In a film, in a book, you can speak to the reader, and you can tell the reader what the character is feeling, thinking, what's going to happen. You can actually go whole chapters without any real dialogue, you know, dialogue in quotes. In a film, a viewer does not get any information whatsoever unless they hear it or see it. So where books can be very, very heavy on prose, there is much less prose in a screenplay and much more dialogue, which means developing characters and having them be characters that people want to take the journey with, because you're fascinated by them, you want to hang around them, you want to be with them. You know, people have asked me, why do you think there's so many people watch movies over and over, the same movie over and over again? Well, it might be if it's a big action movie because it's exciting and you want to see that action again and it's fun. True. Most of the time, it's because you want to spend time with those people again, particularly if it's a drama or something like that. You like being in the presence of the people on screen. Actors will create for the director and for the producer all the inner things that the character needs to have. Actors write long biographies for their characters that go way beyond what the script says. And basically, nobody really knows what they've written, but they're going to play it internally. So again, that's one of the big aspects that we will go through with you if you decide to work with us in adapting your book.
You know, Stephen, one of our favorite series is The Sopranos. Yes. And Tony Soprano, near the end of Sopranos, is not a very likable guy. But in order to get us to go on the journey, they had to make him likable at the beginning. And so when you develop a screenplay, we will make sure that the audience buys into who the characters are. You know, as an author, if you can get your reader to get past the 3rd chapter of your book, you can say almost anything at the end. And if they finish the book, you could say, you can have links to here or whatever, and they're totally in. Well, it is very important in the development of the character and the development of the plot and the trajectory, because Stephen, I believe that now you say you're the old Hollywood, but the format that we use goes back to the ancient Greeks, and I don't even think that you're that old. So tell us about the format of the 3-act play.
Yeah, well, getting up in the morning and getting upright, I do feel that old. I can tell you for sure. Yes, what Sean is talking about, and he brought up a number of things, and I'm glad you brought them up, Sean. Going back to Greek drama, the 3-act structure has lasted through the millennia. Basically, any story on screen or on stage, there are a few exceptions, but not many, has a 3-act structure. There's the setup, there's the complication, and there's the solution. Now, you don't identify those throughout the film, but you have to develop your screenplay with that in mind. And if an ideal drama screenplay is around 105, 110 pages long, there are prescribed lengths, which sometimes have things that are not those lengths, either shorter or longer, but usually not. Dramas are between 105, 110 pages. That means each act is about 35 pages long. It's very important that you get that right, and that's something that we help you with. Sean also brought up getting 3 chapters. You get through 3 chapters in a book, and the author has you. There are various different screenplay drafts that a writer has to go through. And the first and most important one is the selling draft. Having been an executive, having run 2 production companies, which I did, I know what an executive's life is like. An executive in the film industry reads 12 to 15 to 18 scripts a week. A week. If they open a script, and a lot of them will say, no, I don't do that. They all do that. We all did that. First thing they do is go to the end and see how long it is. If it's 147 pages, they immediately say, oh my goodness, this writer is not professional. They didn't work with a professional writer. All right, I'll read it for the first couple of pages, but then they discount it. If the script is 85 pages, it's like, wait a minute, that's not even enough to make a movie. Why am I doing this? Particularly the first 10 or 12 pages are just critical. Just critical. Now, it's critical to hook an audience when you actually make the film, but it's even more critical up front, because up front, when you're trying to sell your screenplay, you're trying to grab the attention of an executive that, as I said, usually does that work on a weekend. So they'll read 12, 15 scripts on a weekend. And it's a relief when you read something that isn't very good in the first beginning, because you just put it aside. I will tell you that there was a wonderful film producer named Tony Bill many, many years ago, made movies like The Sting and things like that, who had a great quote about how do you get a great script made. Many of you who have been in Southern California know what the 405 is, the San Diego freeway. It's one of the biggest, busiest freeways. It's constantly in gridlock. And Tony said, if you've written a terrific script, you can be on the 405 during traffic time, throw your script out the window into traffic. And if it's a terrific script, I guarantee you a producer will stop and pick it up. It sometimes takes a while to get a film made. It doesn't happen overnight, usually. Sometimes it does. But that selling draft, which is what we work with you on, and you will hear us saying, hey, look, that might work later on, and, you can talk to the director about it or the studio executive later. But right now, we need to grab them and have them say, wow, what's going on here? I can't wait to finish this. So I'll say one other thing about The Sopranos. That was one of the most fascinating character developments of any TV series ever, because Tony Soprano is a killer. He's a murderer. He's a thug. He's a drug dealer, okay? Hard to create sympathy and want to go through several seasons of a series with a character like that. So David Chase, who developed that series, made very sure that Tony was also a loving family man. Even though he cheated on his wife, they still made him a loving family man who loved his kids, who was loyal to his friends. How do you create sympathy like that? The opening scene of The Sopranos, episode 1, season 1, Tony is sitting in the office of a psychiatrist and talking about what his blocks are, what he can't do, what he's afraid of. And all of a sudden, he is extremely vulnerable and likable. That's writing. That is writing. And the great writers, the really terrific writers, the ones that have long careers in screenwriting, they know how to write characters that actors want to play, and they know how to create characters that studio executives will say, this makes a really good film. You have to have a good hook for a film. There's no question about that's true. A good basic, what we call elevator pitch. You know, if you're, and the reason that comes from elevator pitches or come from this, if you get into an elevator in Hollywood, in LA, and you see a studio executive in there, and you've been trying to get into that studio executive's office for 8 years, and they won't even talk to you. You get in, you have enough time before you get to the next floor, you have to pitch. You know, how can you pitch your project to that executive who says, oh, okay, yeah, get me that script. I'd be happy to read it. Anyway, those are a number of things that will go.
You know, Stephen, and this is very true. I've seen authors follow publishers into the restroom, and there is no such thing as a restroom pitch. Stephen, each page of the screenplay runs about a minute of filming time. But I know you always like to say, but if in the middle of that page it said, and the barbarians sacked Rome, please elaborate on that for us.
Yes, that's very true. Most dramas, which are mostly dialogue, time out at about a minute a page on screen. Most do. Action movies time out a lot longer, because that phrase that you just used, the barbarians sack Rome, that's one sentence, but it could be 5 pages, 5 minutes on screen, 6 minutes on screen. So action scripts run a lot longer. The problem that Hollywood has now with their financial model for theaters is that with in the Marvel comic universe, they are spending $1 million per minute on screen on visual effects. $1 million a minute.
Wow.
That makes these movies wildly expensive. Wildly expensive. And it keeps setting the bar, the technical bar, higher. That is a problem. There's one other thing I want to say about today, and I think it's a very important thing for us to say. A very well-known comic a couple of years ago said to studio heads on his show, hey, listen, I want to say something to all the people who run studios. Do you think that maybe every once in a while you can make a movie that doesn't make me want to take a bath with a toaster? And it's true. I mean, we get that question a lot. Look at all of the scary, negative stuff. Well, look, it is a scary, very negative world in a lot of ways out there today. That is true. The movie business became the movie business during the Depression, when people wanted an escape from what was going on outside. And that's how Charlie Chaplin became a big star, how the Marx Brothers became big stars, etc. They wanted an escape. It is Sean and my strong feeling today that people want movies with heart. They want movies that are going to make them feel better about being a human being, rather than feeling that we're a depraved lot and we're all, vicious and violent and greedy and things like that. And yes, that is true. There are people like that. Most people are not like that. Most people, I think, are good people, particularly inside. And we want to see movies that inspire us and uplift us. One of the things we're most proud of the script that we just are finishing now, is that it's a very uplifting, inspiring film that is going to make you feel better about being a human being. I always use Forrest Gump as my sample of that. You see Forrest Gump, you walk out feeling better about being human because it's such a human story. So one of the things that we really want to do is do things that at the end are uplifting and inspiring. And by the way, that is what Affirm and Pure Flix wants. The other big distributor of faith-based films, Angel Studios, and we have a connection there as well. They only do finished films that have already been financed and shot, but they're looking for that kind of material as well. If we can blend a faith-based film with a general audience interest in the subject matter and make it inspiring, those are the movies that in 24, 25, and 26 are going to be the movies that people are going to see and requesting and going to see over and over again. And that is what we really hope that we can do with our clients.
So, Stephen, thank you so much for that. All right, I want to see some questions come in, but I'm going to ask, I have to tell you, it is a privilege for me to chat with Stephen. Well, we probably talk 5 times a day, and we're bi-coastal. But he has always, he got a great story about Hollywood when he was a boy, the Marx Brothers and Lucille Ball and Milton Berle and all these people came to his house. But Stephen, I want you to tell us how you got Christopher Reeve's agent fired.
I just saw a quick question come across, by the way, and I'm just going to answer it real quick. No, you do not need to have a fiction book to have it be adapted into a film. The script we just finished was a nonfiction book.
Correct.
And nonfiction is just as easy to adapt as a fictional film is. All right. So I don't know how many of you saw Somewhere in Time. I will do this story quickly because it's one of my favorite stories from my past. So I bought this book, I optioned this book, and we got a wonderful writer. The man that wrote the novel adapted the screenplay. We developed it at Universal. I had a relationship with them because the very first film that I did, that I worked on when I was an executive, was Smokey and the Bandit, which was released by Universal. I did not produce that. The director that I chose had come in and replaced the director that they had on Jaws 2 and saved the movie. So as often happens in Hollywood, they kind of figured they owed us a favor. So they agreed to develop with us a screenplay based on the book of Somewhere in Time. And when it was done, we were called into the executive office for the meeting that every project has when the executive either says, guys, all right, let's talk about casting. Let's go ahead and do this. Or you know what? It's not for us. We're going to put you in turnaround. Go see if you can set it up someplace else. So the head of the studio says to us, you know, I love you guys. We're dead. Okay? We're dead. I knew it right away. We're dead. Now I have to say, it's important. This meeting happened in early January of 1980. Superman 1 with Chris Reeve had opened about 10 days before that during Christmas of 1979 and was a massive worldwide hit. And Chris had become overnight the guy you want for your film.
Yeah.
So Ned Tannen says to us, you know, I love you guys. And I said, Ned, what if we get Christopher Reeve? At which point I wished I could crawl under the carpet. The director told me later that if he had had a gun, I would have been dead. And I thought, oh no, I know what's coming. And Ned looked at me and he said, his first film after Superman? And I said, yeah, but if we don't get him, we can do it. And he said, wait, Stephen, here, I'm gonna make this easy for you. You get Chris Reeve on your budget, you have a green light. Go, make your movie. And I was like, Ned, but if we don't get Chris Reeve, and he looked at me and he said, don't come back. So I'm like, okay. So the director walks out and it's a Laurel and Hardy moment where he says, there's another fine mess you got me into. What did you do? And I said, I know. So I knew Chris's agent. So I called Chris's agent. And I told him, and he said, "You mean that time travel love story thing you have at Universal?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Stephen, I'm getting $3 million offers for Chris." Now, this is 1980. This is 40 years ago. That 3 million for big stars today is 25 million.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Your budget is what, 5?" And I said, "Yep." And he said, "And you have what for a lead?" I said, 500 grand. And he laughed at me and he said, "I'm not even going to talk about this to Chris. I'm not even going to tell him. Don't waste my time," and hung up on me. So Jeannot, our director, looks at me and said, "What are we going to do now?" And I thought for a second and I thought, desperate people do desperate things. And I said, "Okay, come on, get in the car." And he said, "Where are you going? Where are we going?" And I said, "I am not going to tell you where we're going because you won't go." So he got in the car with me. Those of you who have visited Southern California know that there is a long strip of Sunset Boulevard where they sell maps to the stars' homes.
Yeah, I bought those many times.
Okay. Now, having grown up in Southern California, I know what kind of hogwash those things are because, you can say, "Oh, Bruce Willis lives there." Well, unless Bruce is mowing the lawn, you don't know if Bruce Willis, and I know that they're full of baloney. But he said, "I can't believe you're doing this. He won't be listed." I said, "Yeah, look, what else are we going to do?" So we look, and son of a gun, it's listed on an address in the Hollywood Hills. And I said, "Come on, we're going." He said, "Where?" I said, "To his house." And what do we have to lose? Desperate people do desperate things. We're desperate. Let's try. I didn't really in my heart think that he lived there anyway. So we drive up to this house. We get out of the car. We go up and knock on the door. And Christopher Reeve answers the door.
Wow.
Now,
that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, I'm a producer. He's a director. We have a movie at Universal we'd really love you to star in. And then I said the line that Chris told me is what got me in the door. I said, "And your agent won't even show it to you." And he said, "Oh, really? Do you have a copy of a script?" And I said, "Yeah, in the car." So I broke the world record running to my car, running back, handed him a script. He said, put your name down, put your phone number down. I'm going to read it tonight. I'll call you in the morning." He called me in the morning. He said, "Get your director and come to the house. I want to talk to you."
Oh, wow.
We walked in the room and he said, "I'm going to tell you guys 2 things. Number 1, this is my next film. And number 2, I just fired my agent."
Oh my goodness. I love that story.
Which he did. And that agent never spoke to me again. And that's how we got Chris Reeve.
That is just epic. I love that. I love that. We're getting some great questions in the chat here. I'm just going to kind of do them in the order that they came. That's life-changing story. So Dan Snell from Kansas City is asking, do they work with TV 22 to 24 minute episode writing or big screen only? Who wants to tackle that question?
I'll tackle that. That kind of episode writing. Now that's a half-hour format, which is very rare. Usually things now are 1-hour formats, but they still are doing episodic television, of course. Everybody does episodic television, not only the networks, but there are series that are done on all the streaming networks as well. And yes, that can be developed. And if you have a television series that you want to develop, that is something that we can talk about. There's a lot involved in trying to develop a TV series. It is a lot more complex than just writing a screenplay. You really have to kind of pencil out what the first 3, 4, 5 years are going to be like on that series. But I have been involved in that in my past, and I'm certainly happy. We're happy to talk to you about that if that's something that you want to do.
Sounds good. You can actually jump on the calendar. I'm going to put the link up. I had it up a moment ago. We got some great questions coming in. You're watching book2movie.org, adapting your book to film, to streaming television, to, one thing you were talking to me about in the green room is there's so much more demand now. You said that Netflix, and I'll pop up the stat here, Netflix is spending $6 billion a year just for content, and they're looking for quality content. We had some questions here. People are loving the faith-based content. They're loving the good old feel good family story. It's like there's not enough of that out there. But I want to get to some of these other questions for the sake of time. If you've got a question, pop it in the chat for Stephen and Sean. Let us know you're watching. Let us know you're having a good time. This is just great. And we're going to tell you in a minute how you could get on their calendar to learn more. Debbie Adams says, I would be interested in adapting my book to a movie. She's got two books, faith books, from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And just pop your questions into the chat. But Stephen and Sean, I want to get to our next question, is all the way from Kenya. Let's see if I can find it, because we got a lot of comments here, and I'm just kind of going through the order. We got a comment from Scotland. We got question from Kenya. Let me find my Kenya comment here from George. George is a part of our Zig Ziglar Monday morning motivation mastermind and prayer time. What are the potential financial returns and investment associated with adapting my book to film? Who wants to tackle that?
I will be more than happy to tackle that. I will say something to you about this, and I hope that you will take it in the right way. If you are lucky enough to develop something that actually gets purchased and then gets made, you can make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. It's not easy to have that happen. And basically what I would say to anyone who is going to take on adapting a book and bringing us on to do it, I would suggest that the most important motivating factor be for you that you just have to do it. That your emotional makeup is like, I believe in this. I know this is a movie. I want to get this done. If I don't ever get it made, I have to take a chance. Those are to me in life, the things that we regret the most are not the things that we did that didn't turn out, because we have answers. It's the things that we really wanted to do and wished we did and didn't do because of a fear about something or other. And those are the things that haunt us. It is absolutely, if you sell a script, you can literally get hundreds of thousands of dollars. Literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. It could be as little as 50. It could be as much as 500,000. It goes all over the lot. And you might not sell it at all. I have to be very frank with all of you about that, because I don't want to mislead you. It is always a long shot anytime you develop a screenplay, because there are thousands being done all of the time to actually get it to film. It is, it happens, and it happens all the time, but it doesn't happen as a percentage. So I would say that the best way for you to look at that is that, yes, if you do it and you do it well, you can make a lot of money, but you may not. And I think if that is a true, real concern for you, then it may not be the best idea for you to take us on, because we don't want this to feel hurtful to you if it doesn't wind up a year from now or 2 years from now, wind up being made. And that is why in the disclaimer document that we sign with our clients, we are very frank up front about that, so that no one thinks that we are promising you, yeah, you develop your book with us as a screenplay, you'll definitely sell it, you'll definitely get it made. That's like somebody walking up to you in a park with a deck of cards and saying, I'll bet you I can get the Jack of Spades to jump out of the deck and spit in your eye. If somebody says that, run, because you know they're conning you. Nobody should make you any promises about financial return.
Well, Stephen, that's really good. And I'm glad that you said that. But the one thing that you will, when that producer or that financier or that director picks up the screenplay that we've coached you on, the first thing they're going to say is, this person knows what they're doing.
Right.
And so that's very important. I want to go back to the episodic 22 to 25 minute question. What probably we would suggest is that we develop a 90-minute pilot for that project, because that then could be split up or could just be a standalone as a pilot. And so, because you'll notice that many times when a series is released, it's first released with a pilot for that.
Great, great. Any other questions? I want to be sure everybody gets their questions answered today. I got to tell you, this has been incredible. I want to tell everybody just go to theoldhollywood.com. Now, Hollywood has changed. You mentioned Charlie Chaplin. I was in Vevey, Switzerland, right before the pandemic, and I was speaking in Switzerland and in England and in Zurich and London, and it was just great. I was staying with friends there in Vevey, overlooking Lake Lemon, which is when the song dun 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 smoke on the water was written right there at Vevey, because there was a dinner club on Lake Lemon where Charlie Chaplin is famous for being from, and as the club restaurant was burning down, kind of like the Titanic, the band on the Titanic, they just kept playing. And they cut that song. That it was a song they had been playing in the garage, and they're like, if we're going to do this song, let's do it now. And so every time I hear that song, I think about Charlie Chaplin, and I think about, those old silent movies, that slapstick. I mean, I love your title, The Old Hollywood. So go get on Stephen and Sean's calendar, theoldhollywood.com. That's going to fill up. What's kind of the process? Explain that. What does it look like? I mean, if somebody is not going to take a chance, they're not going to know if, I always love to tell my clients, hey, if you're going to get your book adapted to a movie, you need to do a cameo in the movie. I mean, who knows? You might be the next Christopher Reed or Cuba Gooding Jr., but you're not going to know if this movie is going to make you millions of dollars unless you just branch out and try it. So what's kind of the process look like, Min?
Okay, the process is, if you go to the website, we have a long explanation of everything is that we do, our background, what we're looking from you, what we would ask of you in the process, what we will do in the process. But basically what we would ask you to do is, if you're interested, go to the website, and at the bottom of the website, fill in the questionnaire and send it to us. You're not making any commitment whatsoever to that, to saying, okay, I'm doing this with you. What you're committing to is a phone call. And we will then set up a phone call with you to talk about what it is you want to do, to get the idea of what your book is about, etc. If the book feels to us like it's something that we could work with, then we will start the rest of the process. And if you decide then to go with us, for instance, we will send you a document that has all the principal differences between a screenplay and a book. We'll send you a link to a website where you can download famous movie scripts from all over the last several decades and read them for free, so that you get an idea of what it's like to do that. If we decide to go forward, then we will start having discussions about how to adapt your book. What is the key to it? What is the key not to it? Those are often difficult conversations because there are things that authors are in love with in their books that just aren't all going to make it into screenplays. And, there's a phrase in the film industry for directors is that you have to be willing to let your babies go. If your movie is too long, you have to edit out scenes that you don't like, that you do like, because it can't be a 4-hour movie. So we will then discuss that. That will then lead to the outline of the film, and then you'll start writing the script. And what we usually do with writers is have you write the first 10 pages of the script, send it to us, we'll talk about it, we'll make whatever changes, then another 10 pages. By the time we get to 30 or 40 pages, maybe then we'll say, all right, do the second act. We will figure out with you where those act breaks are, which are artificial. They are not a part of the script. And then you'll write the script, and we'll get to the end and we'll go back and repolish it. We might have people that we know and respect read it. and give us some ideas. And at the end of the day, you will have a screenplay that hopefully you are very proud of. And then what you do with it afterwards is something that we can advise you about. But I want to say up front, I am no longer producing movies. I'm 77 years old, and my knees won't hold out on a movie set for 12 or 14 hours a day. So we can suggest to you where you go. You can certainly use my name. I would never suggest anybody that wouldn't say, oh, I can't stand that guy. I don't think I made a lot of enemies in the industry. I don't think I did, but I might be surprised by that. And we can tell you where to go and how to operate from there, advise you how to do that. And that is what the process would be.
Well,
So,
we're getting
Stephen,
some great questions to come in here too. So, Sean, here's what I want to do, and I'll let you comment there as well as we wrap up on these questions. Go ahead, jump on right now to their calendar. This does not obligate you in any way, but this will be a great just launching point for you. Go to theoldhollywood.com right now, and then we're going to get these final 3 questions. Go ahead, Sean.
So here's one question that you may have, or you didn't think to ask. You may have a fiction book in your mind that you haven't written yet. You can adapt it first and make a screenplay, and then Michael will publish that book based on the screenplay afterwards. So if you're like, well, I don't know which way to go, and this idea in my head would make a great movie, we can do that, and then it will become a book through Beyond Publishing after the screenplay is done.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I just want to say this too as well, Stephen, to you and Sean both. I mean, my gosh, 77, you're a young 77. So having an adaptation that's been a screenplay that's been done by you would be pretty incredible. And then we'll help you on that as well. We'll help you promote that and push that out. But we're getting some great questions. I want to tackle these. And that's a great point, Sean, actually coming in with the concept first. If you've got a concept, and this webinar has opened up my mind to some concepts, I'm going to be consulting with you as well on several projects, because December's the time for me to really do a lot of writing, turn up the fireplace, the popcorn, the coffee, and really veg out and write some creative things. So Debbie says, how long does it normally take to, let's see here, how long does it normally take to create a screenplay from a faith book? And then how can you make sure that you're doing a cameo, being an actor in your own movie? Can that happen?
All right, I'll take the second one first because it's an easier answer. You got to be good friends. You got to make friends with the director or the producer. Okay, that's how you do that, or one of the stars. As to the first one, how long it takes, very, very difficult answer. It depends on how much time you can devote to it. If you are working, if you have a job, another job that you're working on, and you can only spend a couple of hours maybe in the evening working on this, then it's going to take a lot longer. If you can write, if your primary occupation is writer, and you're not writing a book right now, and you can spend your work days and spend how many hours you can during a day, it will take shorter. Usually what we do with writers is say, work with us for 3 months. In those 3 months, we'll get your outline done, and we'll get you well into the screenplay if you have the time to do that. The project we just finished took 6 months. We really don't like, Sean is probably going to kill me for this, but I'm sorry, Sean, I'm going to say it anyway. We really don't like people to have to pay us for more than 6 months. Okay. So we just took a couple more months to work on the screenplay we're doing right now. And that was our contribution to the project. I would think that in 6 months, if you can spend time on it, you should be able to get this done, and you might be able to get it done in 4 or 5.
Outstanding, outstanding. Well, these are some exciting things. Now, I want to point out the fact that Stephen, what does it mean you're batting 1,000? That means you've had 3 literary projects that you've successfully brought to the big screen. You're working on your 4th right now. You've got room to take on a couple of more. Tell us, what does this look like, and how confident are you onboarding people? That's a pretty good success ratio.
Well, look, this is really up to the individual client. Sean and I have really, it would be, I think, difficult for us to work with more than 3 people at a time, maybe 4, depending on the project. Because with a book, there's an awful lot of things that go into the beginning of the process. The most complicated part of the process for us is getting that 50 or 60 or 70,000 words reduced down to 20 or 25,000. That is the what to leave in, what to leave out part. That is the part that I have personally, and I think Sean will speak the same way, I have the most fun with. And I want to make this clear. We want to have fun doing this. Mm-hmm. We laugh a lot, mostly at each other. If you take a look at Sean and I, when we first became friends, we looked at each other and we said, we're those 2 old guys up in the balcony on the Muppets. Statler and Hilton, we joke with each other all the time. By the way, projects have to have humor in them. Yeah. They really do, because it makes things so much easier. And I could tell you some stories about the movie Ghost and things like that, but there has to have humor. And we want to have fun with this because we're creating something that can really have a massive effect on people's lives. Movies are the modern day version of a shaman standing around a campfire, passing on the myths and the stories of a culture to the next generation. And we love this. And if you love what your book and you love the idea of having it made into a film, yes, there will be a lot of work, but we promise you there will be a lot of fun. Most of the time you'll spend laughing at me, which is perfectly okay.
Well, I want you to go to the website right now. I want you to sign up before it's too late, because this will fill up fast. deoldhollywood.com. This has been a great segment, Stephen and Sean. Just incredible. I was telling before I got into publishing, I was telling everybody in the business world to adopt a nonprofit, get on stage, write a book. Back in the 90s, I was telling everybody, think like a book publisher. And after Y2K happened, I said, you've got to think like a movie producer. Now that we've got the internet and everybody's got a smartphone, you need to start thinking like a movie producer. If you're really going to create impact, if you really want to impact people with quality content, you've got to be funny. You've got to be serious. You've got to bring hard-hitting facts that are going to be controversial. They're going to upset people. They're going to get people talking if you want to make a difference. And you guys are just the guys to do it. And I'm so grateful that we've been able to partner together on this project. We're getting right into the holidays. Now's really the perfect time. The question is, if not now, when? If not you, who? 5 years from now, you're going to wish you decide to do it today, because when you're in that next elevator and somebody asks you what you're doing, you can say, I'm a filmmaker. I'm a movie producer. Stephen, Sean, it's been great. Jump on now, deoldhollywood.com. We're going to leave the replay up just for a little while because it's coming down. You can share this with friends and family and colleagues that have written books. But listen, this webinar is coming down within the next 48 to 72 hours. It's not going to stay up long. Besides, their calendar is going to be filled anyway. And you heard they're only taking on 3 clients going into the holidays. So, gentlemen, thank you so much. Any closing words?
No, except to thank you, Michael. It's really wonderful. I know you and Sean have known each other for a long time. This interaction that we have had is my first interaction with you, and it's been an enormous amount of fun. So thank you for inviting us to do this. And to everybody else out there, if you're thinking about doing this, we would be very honored if you would consider working with us, because we like to help you go to the next step of getting your book made into a film.
We are hardwired. Thanks to Stephen and Sean, Beyond Publishing is now hardwired. We're ready to rock on. Let's do it together. Let's bring your film, your movie to the world. Peace out, guys. We'll see you on the other side. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you.
Take care, buddy.